He'll reach the kursi, he'll reach the chair, and he'll have that position, but that does not necessitate that that person deserves leadership status. Because there are people who reach this position and send people astray, and they send others astray. And so, once we have found those who deserve this position, right? Our brother here, for example, mashallah, looks like he's inspirational, right? Brother at the door looks like he's very inspirational, right? We take these brothers, say, you know what? I'm going to take you as leadership. Now, what is your role? Now that you realize that there are others who are looking up to you, now that you see that you're now stationed in a position of leadership, it is now time at that point for the leader now to come forward and to lead from the front. I used to be in the, when I graduated high school, because I wanted to get away from Atlantic County, South Jersey, I wanted to get as fast and far away as possible. I joined the United States Army. And one of the things that I noticed very quickly, that the Western style, the military, the Western style of leadership is that the leaders lead from the back. Right? They send the people to the front, and then they on the walkie-talkies, right? They'll dish out orders from the back. Right? The command center is in the back. They're dishing out orders to the front. Well, Allah and His Prophet ﷺ, they've taught us that this is not how leadership is practiced in Islam. Leadership is from the front. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Imam Junnah, yuqatalu wara'ahu, that the Imam, the leader, is a shield, and he is fought behind. And what that tells us is that leadership is from the front, meaning if we go out, Sheikh Ali, we go out and say, I'm going to tell you, listen, we're going to go out and we're going to clean up the streets. Right? We'll get rid of drugs and alcohol off of the streets, at least around in the vicinity of the masjid. I'm going to sit in the office while you round up some brothers and you go handle that. That's not leadership from the Islamic perspective. Maybe in a Western sense, but not an Islamic perspective. Because if that's where the direction that I want the community to follow me in, then that necessitates that I'm the first one out there. As the Prophet ﷺ used to be the first one to do things. He was the first one on the battlefield. He was out front. Command you to go out in battle, the Prophet ﷺ was out there. He commanded them to dig a trench. The Prophet ﷺ was right there digging with them. He told them to build a masjid. The Prophet ﷺ was carrying bricks right along with them. Why? Because leadership, as we said, is a person being out front and his life and his actions being the actual example of what a person actually should be doing. And so, this is leadership. And this leadership has to have some core values. One of them is integrity. Integrity and truthfulness is an important, I would say, an important characteristic of the position of leadership. Does anybody want to, what is integrity? Let's get some crowd involvement here. See, somebody make sure nobody's sleeping. Yes. In your definition, what would you say integrity is? Being the same person that I am when people are looking and when people are not looking. Yes, you want to say something? You want to add something to it?
I was going to say doing the right thing regardless of the outcome.
Doing the right thing regardless of the outcome.
Taking ownership when you're right or wrong.
Taking ownership when you're right or you're wrong. I believe all of these answers are correct. And I liked your answer when he said being the same person that I am when people are looking, when people are not looking. Why? Because how that relates to good leadership is that you don't know, especially in our time today, you don't know when people are looking, when people aren't. Right? Because if you are a person who's one way when you're public facing, and you're a different way when you're behind closed doors. Like I know, Allah Musta'an, some of the brothers, they come out to the masjid, they're the most pious people in the world. And then when they go home, they're completely different people. So if we want to be a leader, then we have to have integrity. And having integrity means we're the same person that we are no matter who's watching. First and foremost, because good leadership understands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching. So someone who you want to inspire you is someone who has that belief that Allah Azza wa Jal is always watching. So they're going to have integrity. The person or the position of leadership is what do we call a person? What do we call a person whose their outward appearance is not the same as their inward appearance? What do we call that person?
Hypocrite.
Munafiq. We call that person a hypocrite. Right? We call that person a hypocrite. And the hypocrite does not deserve leadership. The hypocrite does not deserve leadership. And so integrity is extremely important. Now, is it possible for us to develop integrity? It is. So those of you who say, well, that's not me, I'm being honest with myself, I don't have integrity. Say, it is still possible for you to develop it. Right? You have to just learn how to do it, practice it. And it is something that should be purposefully discussed with our young people. Those of us who are fathers, uncles, mentors, teachers, educators in some way, these things are discussions that we have to have with our youth. We have to put them in positions to practice this level of integrity if we want them to be leaders of the future. Because this is one of the cornerstones of good leadership. A person being the same way that he is in public, that he is in private. Because if a person is different in private than he is in public, how do we know that we can trust him? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us.
I have a question. Can I ask one quick about the integrity?
If the Imam is okay with it.
I want to know where the word honesty comes in with integrity.
So I'll give you one better, sister, because I don't necessarily like the word honesty. I'd rather use the word transparency, as I heard someone say that before. Shadid, I told you I was going to steal that. Don't tell nobody I took it from. I like the word transparency because, for example, let's say I have a bad friend. Right? I have a friend who, we're going to call him Abdul Kareem. Abdul Kareem is a bad influence, right? Abdul Kareem is bad influence. Now, my wife don't like Abdul Kareem because every time I'm with Abdul Kareem, right, we get into some things I ain't supposed to get into. So, I go to the store, and on the way home, I stop off at Abdul Kareem's house. Then I come home. My wife says, "Where were you?" And I say, "I went to the store." Am I being honest?
Yeah, you're being honest.
I'm being honest. I didn't lie. I did not lie. That's honesty. That's honesty. Transparency would be, I went to the store and I stopped off at Abdul Kareem's house. That would be transparency. And so we have to rise above just being honest. We have to take our situation to another level, where we own. And what did you say? We talked about integrity.
Taking ownership.
Taking ownership.
Right?
When you're right or when you're wrong, owning your decisions. If you own your decisions, then you can be transparent. Once you've owned your decision, good or bad, it is what it is. You did it. You can fool me all you want to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already saw you do it. The angels already wrote it down. It is what it is. So take ownership of it. People will love you for it more and respect you for it more. Because the truth always comes out anyway. Right? Your wife gonna find out you was at up the creek. She probably already knew you was at up the creek, so that's why she asked you. She got your location on your Apple iPhone. So transparency, not just honesty. We have to be all the way. If we want to do this, so we need to do it all the way. And we've been half-stepping for years. It's time for us to rise. Right? We've been doing things halfway. It's time for us to rise, especially now. Right now, I'm talking to the brothers. No excuses. Own your issues and rise. Own them and rise. Take the leadership position that you deserve, but take it with its right. Take the leadership position by right. Again, now we're not discussing just the titles. Some of us are husbands by titles. Some of us are managers by title. Some of us are imams and masajid by titles. I'm saying we need to take these positions by right. Owning or adorning ourselves with the characteristics of leadership. Because in order for us to build community, we have to have leadership. And you're going to see what happens. Anybody into sports here? I'm not saying it's permissible or impermissible, I'm just asking, right? You like sports. What sport do you like? Football, okay. When the football team is losing, the owner usually does what? Fire out the players? No, who goes? The coach. Why? Because when the team is losing, this is not a sign of bad players, it's a sign of bad leadership. So the owners come and they fire the coach and you hire a new one. So now, for those of us who are inside of institutions and we're in these positions and we see that things aren't going well, then we need to stop pointing fingers outwards and start saying, hey, what's the issue inward? What is the issue? What am I not doing right? Because if I'm the leader and I'm responsible, and this is what I've produced, then what is it that I've done? What is it that I haven't done? Because our communities are only going to go as far as our leaders take. And so we're going to need every single one of us to step up and to adorn themselves with these qualities of leadership so that we can build a moral community. When I say the moral community, it means that it's a community that's built on morals and principles. Not just a community that's together. And I think we need some more sessions, maybe inshallah ta'ala, when the message gets open, I'm going to come down, I'm going to invite myself right down. Right? So since I've made the announcement, Shadi can't tell me no now. so we can discuss what is unity and what is community. Because community or unity, tell me to be quiet. Unity is not just people coming together. Because of the position that I'm in Middlesex County, in New Jersey, we have a very high profile masjid, which we're very involved with the city. And so a lot of times our masjid, its leadership is invited to different places to have discussions with city council, the sheriff, sometimes even the mayor. A few times the state representatives come. We have to sit down, and maybe there might be some tea and some crackers, and we're sitting at the same table. Now, does that mean that we're unified? No, we're sitting at the table. Just because we're sitting together doesn't mean that we're unified. There were people who prayed with the Prophet and the Sahaba, right? They weren't with them. The Munafiqeen, they weren't with them, but they were praying together. And so unity is not simply just sitting in the same room. It's unity is when there are those who come together purposefully for the same purpose. Because we can be unified with people who we don't sit together. Like my brother Saajid, I've been knowing brother Saajid. When did we meet? 2000? 24 years. I haven't seen Saajid. When's the last time we saw each other? 10 years ago? Yeah, 10 years ago. 10 years. I don't ever feel like I've been divided from him except when he doesn't answer my phone calls. We're not divided. If my brother Saajid called me today and said, listen, I need you to come to my house right now. I'd be on the highway. I'd ask him what you need when I get there. Because we're still united. Why? Because our values align. Our morals align. We're united based upon principles. And this is how we want to build our communities, based on values and principles, not based upon what side of the city that we grew up on. I'm from East Side, you from East Side, you from West Side, you from West Side. Y'all go get your own masjid. We want to build communities that are grounded and rooted in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And all of you together hold on to the rope of Allah and do not become divided. And so that which brings us together formulates the community. We said leadership and morals and principles. When we have leadership that's proper and our community is founded on morals and values and principles that's based in revelation, then we'll find that we'll never be divided. Because we're always going to be able to agree on revelation. But when our communities are built on partisanship, whether it's political parties, whether it's madhabs, which shaykh did you study with, whether it's the skin tone, what language you speak. When we are building communities based on we're not going to be united and we're not going to be successful, because those alliances do not last. The only thing that lasts and stands the test of time are the morals, values, and principles that have been revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, I'm getting ready to get another one of these papers. I can see him reaching. So let's wrap this up, inshallah ta'ala. The takeaway from this, the takeaway from this talk that I hope that we all walk away from is I want us all to be inspired to greatness. Each and every one of us. Because each and every one of us is a leader in some way. Someone is looking up to you. Even if it's just your son, or even if it's just your daughter, someone's looking up to you. And so we have to embody the true meaning of leadership as it was intended by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And I want us to build and to start our discussions on building our communities. Now, I just heard just after Jumu'ah that the masjid, alhamdulillah, Masjid Rawdah is going to be opening up in a few weeks. And I want the discussion for those of you who this is your community, where you'll be attending and praying every day. Put it in the front of your mind that the masjid has to be run and ruled by morals, values, and principles, not personalities. Morals, values, and principles, not personalities. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us. I pray that Allah tabarak wa ta'ala puts us all on the straight path. Ask Allah azza wa jal to accept from us our good deeds and our righteous actions. May He overlook our faults and forgive us of our sins.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise amongst our community transparent leaders and great followers. Inshallah, we will continue to move on. So we have our next speaker, Imam Abu Saajid, who will be talking to you and us about things are worth sacrificing for choosing our battles wisely. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Abu Saajid. Is he here?
I'll say it too. I'll talk to you. He gets to your show. As soon as he walks in, I'll turn the mic over and show him. Maybe we have time. Is that him? Maybe we have time for someone. If someone has a question, is he here? Okay, never mind. Inshallah, he's here. Sheikh is here. I'll just keep the chair moving. Yeah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So my topic tonight is some things are worth sacrifice in choosing your battles. So firstly, before we get started, so we all clear about when we sacrifice, and the sacrifice we're talking about is that usually people sacrifice something, or they're sacrificing for something that to them is important. So therefore, a person is willing to sacrifice sleep for something else that's important to them. A person is willing to sacrifice money or lack of money for something else that's more important to them. A person may sacrifice time where they could be doing something else for something that they deem to be more important to that particular person. So in this case, the sacrifice that we're referring to is that sacrifice, not necessarily the sacrifice of slaughtering. When we talk about slaughtering animals, sacrificing in that case, we're talking about that I'm going to miss something. I have to miss something. I'm going to just use sleep, for example. I may lose hours of sleep because I'm sacrificing to do something else. So yeah, those things that we sacrifice sleep for, or money or whatever, those are things that most people only sacrifice for things that they see to be important. Now the question is, Islamically and historically, there's a major sacrifice that's been going on since the time of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I heard a statement last week that I want to start with, which was the statement of Imam Malik rahimahullah. And Imam Malik rahimahullah, he died over 1,200 years ago. Over 1,200 years ago. So if you think about it, this is a person we never met. We don't even know what he really looks like, except for the description we might read in the book. But we come over 1,000 years later, and we referred back to a statement of Imam Malik, rahimahullah, that will give us some direction on what we should be doing today. And this is all, inshallah, what we're going to hear today, inshallah. It should be an encouragement for us all to do more personally as individuals. Not depending on the next person to do it, not the brother sitting next to you, I thought he was going to do it, or this person, that family was going to do it, that family. Inshallah, it's the encouragement that every person, as an individual person, whether you're a parent or you're not a parent, you're a child, you're older or younger, that every person takes away and they try to make themselves better in what we're going to go over today. So Imam Malik rahimahullah, he said, لا يصلح آخر هذه الأمة إلا بما صلح به أولها. That the end of the ummah, at the end of time, the later Muslims will not be corrected, or they only will be corrected with what corrected the earlier Muslims. So the earlier Muslims, of course, Imam Malik rahimahullah, is closest to the time of the Sahaba, very close to the time of the Sahaba. What corrected the companions, whether they be male or female? And a lot of times we hear the word companion and we think of a man, which there were many male companions, of course, but there was a lot of female companions. There were a lot of female companions that the male companions had to depend on. Does anybody know who? for starters? Huh? Aisha, radiallahu anha. And what did they depend on her for? Huh? Ilm was ilm, so we all clear. Knowledge. We everybody like the earlier companions, the earlier Muslims, they had to depend on, I'm gonna say it like this intention. There were times they depended on a woman for knowledge. And that means, in order for them to depend on that woman for knowledge, that means she had to have she had to have knowledge. She had to have learned, which is number one encouragement for the sisters. Sisters, learning is not just restricted to men. Learning is not only for the boys, for your sons. Learning is not only for our sons and our daughters, our bare minimum, barely know what to do as Muslims. That's a mistake. That the Sahaba, many of the Sahaba had to depend on Aisha radiallahu anha because of her knowledge of the deen. We're not talking about knowledge of anything else, it's a knowledge of deen. So they had to refer back to a woman. And I'm not talking about nobody in this room or not in this room. I'm talking about in general, how many women right now can we refer to in any of our communities for knowledge? And if it's not that many, that means that's an area we need to pay attention to. Learning Islam is not restricted to men. And it should not only be encouraged to the men and to the boys. And that leaves the girls who will eventually be women and wives ignorant. That'll leave them ignorant. Tell you. Imam Abdullah said that what made the early Muslims, what made them and corrected their situation is the same thing that will correct our situation. There's a lot of things we can say about that, but today we're going to focus on, we're focusing on, and of course, the early Muslims. If Imam Malik was after the companions, if Imam Malik rahimahullah is after the companions, then that means the early Muslims include his generation and the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what we're talking about today is a old tradition in Islam. This is old, this is nothing new. We're not reinventing the wheel tonight. This is old. But hopefully we take it a little more serious as individual people. The later Muslims will not be corrected except by what corrected the earlier Muslims, which starts with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're talking about sacrifice. The Prophet alayhi wasallam and the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the Imams of the Salaf, there was a serious sacrifice for knowledge and to learn. Serious sacrifices for knowledge and to learn. We're not talking about sacrificing for money. We're talking about sacrificing time, health, family. It was a serious sacrifice status. It was a serious sacrifice for the Sahaba for learning deen, which means if we're a people, if we're going to be people who claim, and we make the claim, we're following the way of the companions, or we want to follow the way of the companions. The companions, male and female. Male and female. It was a serious dedication and a serious sacrifice to learn. Which in our terms, y'all, which means that once we leave here on Sunday, it doesn't stop there. Learning doesn't stop after a weekend conference. That's bare minimum we should be doing. We're talking about sacrificing in our lives on a daily basis, which means we're gonna miss some things. We're gonna miss some dinners. We're gonna miss some outings. We're gonna miss some conversations. We're gonna be losing some sleep. We're gonna lose friends, for real. If we're really serious about learning, it's gonna be people that we don't even talk to anymore. Why? Because learning Islam isolates you to some degree. It puts you on an island. And once you put you on that island, the people that are not doing what you're doing, either one or two things is going to happen, or three. Either they're going to do what you're doing and go all in on knowledge, learning, trying to learn, or you're going to do what they're doing, which means you're going to leave learning, right? Somebody's going to affect the other person. So today, inshallah, we want to look at some of the dedication, starting with the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Starting with the statement of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, and in this hadith, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentioned five categories. He mentioned 5 categories. Every person in here can fit in one of these categories. The may Allah protect us all from being from the last category. In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned 5 categories. And he says, and this is recorded by Tabarani, al-Bazzar, عن أبي بكر رضي الله عنه قال سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول أبي بكر not Abu Bakr, not Abu Bakr, like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Abu Bakr, Bakr. Abu Bakr said that he heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, "Ughdu aliman, أو متعلما, أو مستمعا, أو محبا, ولا تكون خامسا فتهلك." He mentioned 5 categories. I'm saying this intentionally like this. We have no excuse, y'all. We have no excuse when it comes to specific things like, for example, like learning Arabic. There's no excuse. Majority of the Muslims in the world are not Arabs, which means the majority of the Muslim world, wherever they're from in the world, wherever they're from, they have to learn Arabic. We're no different. We can learn just like the rest of the world is learning. Some people are intimidated by language. People are intimidated. Some people are intimidated by foreign languages. A language that's not ours, they're intimidated, so we'll never even try to learn. But the Arabic language is a tool to give us a better understanding of Allah's book, the Quran, and a better understanding of the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a tool to help us gain a better understanding, and with that better understanding, we're supposed to worship better. It's supposed to help us to be better worshipers, not just that we just know Arabic and we can say a couple of Arabic sentences, and and then after a couple sentences we done. Man, that's good if you're trying to you know what I'm saying? If you're trying to do something, you're trying to show somebody that you did something. That's not necessarily going to benefit us when it comes to reading Allah's book and reading the Sunnah of the Prophet. And I'm mentioning this because the first thing that the Prophet said, he said, "Ughdu aliman." He said, be a scholar. Be a scholar. And there was a time when it was said that there were no scholars. There are no scholars in the West, and as if we can never be scholars, like no scholars could come from us, which is a problem. If that's the case, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't put a restriction on what part of the world the scholars are going to come from. He said, be a scholar, which that should be the ultimate goal. The highest thing that we can go for is we say shoot for the stars. The ultimate goal is that we produce, us. I'm saying black Muslims from the inner city, right? The goal is that we produce scholars of Islam. Not only, I'm not saying it's not wrong, but I'm saying, we're not only supposed to just be producing basketball players, sports figures, and entertainers. That's not right. We can do more than that. And even the other professions that are respectable professions, nothing wrong with it. But when are we going to when do we get the idea in our brains? When do we come to the understanding that our children, or us ourselves, we can be from the scholars of Islam? When do we get that here? And mentally, take that as a mental note. Like, no, we can do it. It can be one of us. Because if it came to something else that we all familiar with, when it comes to familiar things that we're familiar with, and I'm only using this as an example, it's not nothing against people who play sports. I like sports. But I'm saying things that we're not familiar with, we're afraid of. We're not familiar, for the most part, we're not familiar with our children being in class, Islamic class, every day. We're not familiar with that for the most part. We're familiar with our children going to programs every day, social programs. Whether it's sports or any type of social event, something social. We're used to that, so that's familiar to us. So we don't mind doing those things. And we don't mind driving them there, picking them up, waiting in the car for 2 hours, paying money, right? We don't mind, there's no problem, because that's something we're familiar with. But when it comes to something we're not that familiar with, something that's a question mark, we don't know what the end result is going to be. Many of us are scared and intimidated. So we're intimidated to take our young children and put them in full-time Islamic programs because we're afraid they're going to fail in school. We're afraid they're not going to be able to function in society. So we're afraid to sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. We're afraid to sacrifice what they will possibly miss the school. We're not even sure if they're going to miss it. But we're so scared, we're afraid to sacrifice that for our children for the greater good, which is learning on Allah's book, for example. Quran. Let's just start with that. And I'm going to tell you, I know a person personally. His Arabic, he was in the Mahad, the Arabic program with me, Hassan Gulan. And Hassan was a Hafiz. He finished the Quran before he got there. And I hope he never sees this, but Hassan was he was already memorizing the Quran when he got there. Hassan might have been the weakest student in our class. He was the weakest when it came to Arabic. When it came to the Quran, he was finished. At Quran, airtight. Memorization, airtight. But when it came to the book work in class, Hassan was probably the weakest person. It was so bad. Hassan, he's from London, he's from the UK. He would respond to the teacher in English. Teachers don't speak English. So sometimes I had to turn to him and say, Hassan, they don't understand what you're saying. You can't talk to them in English. They don't understand English. So Hassan his level was not that. His level was, he was probably the weakest in the class. So one day I said to Hassan, because I couldn't believe he knew the whole Quran and his Arabic was that weak. And I used to be like, you gotta know this word. This word is all through the Quran. How do you don't know what this word is? This is the point even mentioned. I said, when did you memorize the Quran? He said, when I was 10. I said, how long did it take you? 2 years. This is the kicker. It's for the parents, because we scared. I said, well, how did you do it? He said, my father took me out of school. He removed me from school for 2 years. Is that a sacrifice or no? Most of us, we scared. Even though the same schools our kids are in, we don't trust them anyway. We don't trust them. They're going to teach our kids everything that goes against our deen. They're not going to learn nothing. The teachers are this. The programs are not good. But we're not going to remove them because we don't know people who remove kids and do this. So I'm not going that far. Even though the school is crazy, I need to get out of here, all that, but I'm not taking them out though. He said, my father took me out of school when I was 10. And I went and sat with a Quran teacher, Sheikh, 5 days a week for 2 years until I finished. This is the kicker. He said, when I went back to school after 2 years, it was like I didn't miss anything. That's what he told me. It's like I didn't miss anything after 2 years. And this was, 06, whatever, 06, 07, something like that, 2006, 2007, right? This is when he told me that. And I'm only saying that now because in 2006, 2007, when I left, online schooling was not a big thing. So a lot of people at that time, and he was talking about before that, people were scared to homeschool. Now, the more realistic option for a lot of people is homeschool. right? Point being, that's a sacrifice for the parents. And that's a sacrifice that many of us, since we haven't seen it done, a lot of us are afraid. We don't know what's going to happen at the end. But the hadith of the Prophet, the statements of the Salaf, all of this shows that it's worth the sacrifice. So the Prophet said, firstly, the first group, he said, be a scholar. Be a scholar. He said, oh, muta'allim. If you can't be a scholar, and this hadith, it leaves no wiggle room. Because everybody's gonna make an excuse. I'm busy, I'm married, my kids, I can't do that, work, sick, can't, time. Be a scholar. He said, oh, muta'allim, or be a student of knowledge. Who do the students of knowledge learn from? The scholars. Either way you learn it. Question, y'all. Do scholars learn? Or they already learned out? You never stop learning. Be a scholar or be a student of knowledge. A person who's always trying to learn. I don't know what people gather from the term student of knowledge, but to simplify it and make it real simple, a student of knowledge is a person, not just a man, a person who's always trying to learn deen. And they dive on it. That's the taller end. You don't necessarily have to have your name on a roll sheet. You don't have to necessarily do any of that. A person is always trying to learn. He said, oh, that's the second category. The first category, be a scholar. The second category, be a student of knowledge. He says, oh, mustami'an, or be a person who listens to knowledge. Be a listener. Does everybody understand what that means? Huh? Who said no? A person that's listening, they do less what?
Talking.
Work? No. They might be working. They do less talking. A person's gonna make excuse. I can't go overseas. I can't do this. I'm too old. I have too many responsibilities. I can't be a student. But be a listener. At some point, I'm only using examples. That's what I'm saying. Nothing wrong with the podcast, y'all. But you can't podcast your whole day. At some point, you have to be a listener to knowledge. At some point, if we want to gotta sacrifice time in the day to turn off what we like to listen to and listen to what we need to listen to. At the third group, be a listener. He said the fourth group, oh, muhibban, or be a person who loves knowledge and loves the people of knowledge. That's bare minimum. Bare minimum. Be a person who loves knowledge and they love the people of knowledge. Who are the people of knowledge? This is a slogan term. This is just a term that people be saying. Who are people of knowledge? Scholars. That's even a term. Let's leave it at that. Scholars. I'm not going to get into this. Scholars. What's a scholar? An individual that is an expert in a particular field. Okay. That's anybody else? If you're talking to a 7-year-old, but let's even go lower. Let's stay at 7. How would you define a scholar to a 7-year-old? Would you tell them that?
I have 7-year-olds now.
I'm saying, would you tell them that?
No, I would tell them that a scholar is someone who has dedicated their life to this thing, to learning more about it, teaching it, spreading it, and perfecting it.
Anybody else? A person who dedicated their life to someone who tries to learn. Like somebody who tries to learn, the student of knowledge. Or that could be a scholar. Anybody else? I don't really like using terms and be not clear on the terms. Because I know I used to think a teacher, a scholar is a teacher. Like if we say a scholar is a teacher, Is every teacher a scholar? Tell you, every teacher is not a scholar. Like, is every scholar teaching? All the scholars teach? They should be, but like a scholar, you know? Anybody else? Definition of a scholar? Somebody that loves schooling. Like, he said somebody that dedicated their lives to that study, mastering something. They master it. It's a high level of education. It's not your regular. Are we all clear? Do any of us here? Does anybody here think that you can't do that? Nobody will raise their hand for that. That's a bad question. I'm just saying. We don't think we can dedicate ourselves to learning Islam and be raised to the level of scholars. We don't think that. We don't think that about ourselves. We don't think, I'm trying to make a point that we have a low estimation of ourselves in general. The way our estimation of what we can do is low. So a lot of us don't even think that a scholar in Islam is possible for people that look like us. We won't say it, but that's what it really is. When it really narrows down, we don't think we can be scholars. And that's the problem. We're not following the advice of the Prophet. He started with being a scholar. Be a scholar, which means you have the ability to do that. He's not going to tell us something that we can't do. Like, you got excuses for that? Be a student of knowledge. You can do that. You can't do that? Be a listener. Be a person who listens to knowledge. I can't use my headphones at work. We always got excuses. You can't drive and listen to them. Like, at least love the people of knowledge and love knowledge. That's bare minimum. The Prophet said. He didn't say it's bare minimum. He said, be a person who loves knowledge and the people of knowledge. And then he said, don't be from the fifth category. Don't be from the fifth category. You know the fifth category?
Yes.
What's the fifth category?
To hate knowledge.
Exactly. To hate knowledge and the people of knowledge. Don't be from the people who hate knowledge and hate the people of knowledge. Don't be from them. Exactly. I only asked him because I'm telling y'all this just for the purpose of this whole conversation right now. I teach a class with boys from 9 to 16. And the class is called Preparing Imams and Students of Knowledge for boys 9 to 16 years old. And I termed it like that, I labeled it like that because I know we don't think our boys can be imams. We don't see flyers that say, do you want your child to be a hafiz? I mean, this is a question now. Do y'all see those type of flyers posted in inner city mansions? No. What mansions are they posted in? Foreigners, I ain't gotta say it. As long as we clear, I ain't sure. Cool. They get it, they understand. They have an estimation of their children, that their children can be a father for him. So we don't even see that type of terminology on our flyers. So the fact, I just put it on there just to get the brand name. My child be a student of knowledge? Yeah. And I always get Eli and Issa mixed up. That's Issa, right? Issa and Eli. Issa and Eli, both of them in the class, and we did this hadith in class. So I want to see if you remember the fifth category, the don't be from the people who hate knowledge or the people of knowledge. Don't be from them, because if you are from the fifth category, the hadith says, you will be destroyed. You will be destroyed. He said, don't be from the fifth category, because you'll be destroyed. They said you mentioned four, but you didn't mention the fifth category. He said, that you would hate knowledge and the people of knowledge. What does that mean for us, y'all? All that means is at some point we're gonna have to dedicate some time to learning. Not just on the weekend for 3 days. That's not gonna get it. This is a start, this is a jump start. This is a jump start for the people here, and it's a jump start mentally that maybe I need to take and adjust my day. I need to adjust my life. I need to adjust the life of my children. I need to maybe go on a different path. Later, we're gonna look at some of the dedication that historically, sacrificing for knowledge is historically documented. Now, we might not be paying attention, but we need to understand when we hear what we hear, when we hear what we're about to hear, we need to understand inside of this is sacrifice. You have to lose and give up something. When we were in school, there were brothers sick. Some people died there. Some people died studying Islam. Never went back home. Like families broken apart. Why? Because you're sacrificing time away from your family. Relationships strained and broken. Too much time away. Everybody get it? It has to be some sacrifice. Now, I'm not telling everybody to do some of the things that we're going to hear that may be, well, we'll hear when we get to it, inshallah. I'll make it clear when we get to it. No problem, y'all. I ain't It says here, روى محمد بن قدامة قال سمعت الشجاع بن مخلد قال سمعت أبا يوسف يقول. He said, I heard Abu Yusuf say. Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah, he's a student of Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. Now, this is the point. We want to look at the story, and listen to the statement, and imagine the dedication and the sacrifice it took to do something like this. Abu Yusuf said, Mat ibn li. He said, one of my sons died. فَلَمْ أَحْضُرْ جِهَازَهُ. He said, I didn't even go to prepare his body for the janazah. وَلَا دَفْنَهُ. I didn't go to his burial. He said, وَتَرَكْتُ عَلَى جِيرَانِي وَأَقْرَبَائِي. He said, I left, this is his son. He said, I left my son to my neighbors, the watchmen, burying and everything, and my relatives. So yeah. Why did he do that? He said, مَخَافَةً أَنْ يَفُوتَنِي مِنْ أَبِي حَنِيفَ شَيْءٍ. He said, out of fear, I was going to miss one of the classes with Imam Abu Hanifa. Mr. I'm not, this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying miss your son, your children. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying to miss your child's janazah, don't wrap up. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying, look at the dedication and what he sacrificed for what? Knowledge, just to learn. I didn't want to miss class for his own son's janazah. He said, he said, that regret will never leave me. If I miss that class, I will regret not going. So you might say, that's how they were back then, right? That's over. I know a brother right now, graduated from Medina, right? He was in Medina, and his father passed away. Allah yarhamah. His father passed away. And basically the same thing, he didn't go to the janazah. Why? In Medina, if you leave, and the brothers from Medina, y'all can correct me wrong. In Medina, if you leave, if you sign yourself out to go back home and it's not break time, it's like an unauthorized break from the semester, you can't sign yourself back in. Once you go, you're done. Right? Sheikh Akil? Is that right? Like, the brother made the decision to sacrifice, missing who? He missed his father's janazah to stay in Medina and learn. Because what we're gonna do, I know what we do. We're gonna take this, we're gonna say, man, that was old, that's old stuff. That's vague. We're gonna make an excuse not to change the way we look at sacrificing for knowledge. We're gonna make an excuse up here of why I don't have to change my idea, the way I think about knowledge and learning Islam. That's old, Joe. That's old. Nobody doing that now. No, that's a brother right now. He's around too. He's around. And his father passed away while he was in Medina, and he had the opportunity to leave and go to the Janazah and decline. Because he knew if he left Medina, he couldn't get back. Allah reward him. I mean, tayyib. And mashallah, a lot of brothers doing some great work. Great work he's doing right now. Tayyib. It says here, Qala Umar ibn Hafs al-Ashqar rahimahullah. We do know Imam al-Bukhari, right? His famous book is what? Huh? Everybody knows his book? Sahih Bukhari. Tayyib. He says, Kunna ma'a Bukhari al-Basra, Naktub. He said, we were in Iraq with Imam Bukhari recording the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. They said, فَفَقَدْنَاهُ أَيَّامًا. Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, he disappeared for a couple of days. Nobody could find him. Right? ثُمَّ وَجَدْنَاهُ فِي بَيْتٍ وَهُوَ عُرْيَانٌ. We found him in the house. We found him somewhere in a random house with no clothes on him. Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah. It says, he spent all of his money. Everything he had spent. He put all his money on the line. Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah. He traveled the world with his own money. He traveled the world, not the city or the state. He traveled the world, I'm talking about country to country, with his own money until he ran out of money. He ran out of money, he had money. So he had money. He said, we found him, he didn't have anything with him. He said, فَجَمَعْنَا لَهُ دَرَاهِمْ وَكَسَوْنَاهُ. He said, we had to gather money up to buy him some more clothing. Now, what's the sacrifice in that, John? He sacrificed his money. Pay attention, y'all. Is this? Many of us, he sacrificed money for what? For what? Give me a simple term. He sacrificed money to do what? To learn. He paid money to learn. Now, 1,000 years later, guess what book everybody has to have in their house? Sahih Bukhari. Guess what everybody says when they say Imam Bukhari? Rahimahullah. All over the world. Even in them places where you think his book wouldn't be, his books are there. Right? Us, we think, we have the idea there's no reason I should have to pay to learn. We gotta pay for that? Ah, cool. They should be doing it fee sabilillah. Right? We don't want to pay no money to learn. I hate to use the same analogy, but it was a non-Muslim teaching our children or teaching us something from dunya, training program for 3 weeks, 8 hours a day. You can't be absent. You can't be late. You can't be this 6 months. We're going to change our whole lives around to fit that. Right? So you got to pay to learn something, man, John, ain't shit we charge. How you going to charge people to learn? We don't want to sacrifice. We want to sacrifice for this. And the idea is when we hear this to understand they're sacrificing things for learning, to learn Islam, to be able to be better worshipers. That's the idea. You have to give up something. Just like we give up other things for things that we see to be important. If it's important to us, we don't mind shutting it down for 6 months. I'll get back to it. Why? Because this that I'm looking at is more important to me. I don't mind paying. You gotta pay how much you gotta pay. It's only a 1 day set. It's only a 1 day, what they call it, John? Training. It's like a 1 day training. It's a $700 course. They give you 8 weeks for $700. Hour and a half a week. $700. We'll do that. I get paid next week when we put the money down. Right? If it comes to learn and deen, we don't think we should have to put our money up that Allah gave us to learn Islam. Everybody get it? Like, it says here, قال الحافظ عبد الرحمن بن يوسف, he said, and this is from the more, and I'm not saying nobody do this, please. Don't say the brother was there, some people do extreme bullshit. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, look at what he's saying. Look at the sacrifice that was put there, that these people who, the beginning of the Ummah, they were corrected, they were so great. Why? Look at the sacrifice they did, not for no position. Not because I'm trying to marry and you trying to marry her and she, none of that. Knowledge, this is for knowledge. Tell you that many of the students will tell you, when you go to seek knowledge, just in case you don't know, there are no glitz and glamour in that part. Everybody forgets about you. There's no glory when you're there doing the work. The glory to people is the end result. The end result, you see, not me. You see Imam Shadid and them people, they going and they showing you what they do. That's the end, that's the glamour. But when you're there doing the work, nobody, everybody forgets about you. And some people say, Allah, some people have compared to being locked up. Everybody forgets about you. You there, you on your own. They come, you pop up, they say, oh, mashallah, I know you're still here. Right? There's no bright lights when you're doing the work. But even with that, listen to the dedication. He says, شربت بولي في هذا الشأن 5 مرات. يعني hadith. He said it was 5 times when I'm out learning, trying to go learn hadith of the Prophet. He said 5 times I had to drink my own urine. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, what I'm saying is this. All I'm saying is this. In order for a person to go that far, that means they must have been on the verge of what? Death. All the way to death for this. 5 times, not once. Now I got caught out there one time. I spent everything. I was done. I was broke. I ain't want to die. Not once, 5 times. Later. And of course, that was done out of necessity. That's not something that the students of knowledge go around doing. It's not nothing like that. It's just, the question should be this. This should be the question. It's definitely not there. It's not there. But the question should be, what's in that knowledge that a person would do something like that? What's in the hadith? What's in the knowledge that these people are willing to sacrifice that much to learn? That should be the question. Is it that serious? Because I know to us in the society we're in now, I know that the job we're in now, it's not that serious to us. In general, it's not that serious. But when we look at the people who we say we love, the greatest times of Islam, the best times of Islam, these people sacrifice to learn. They cut out times of their lives to learn. That's what it was about, learning. Was it the whole community? No, it wasn't the whole community. There were people with regular jobs and people operate like a normal society. But there were people, and there was a lot of them. There was a lot of them at that time. A lot, large crowds would come, and they were not always people who were students of knowledge. Because some of us hear the term student of knowledge, and then we get intimidated by that. Some people just came to listen to the knowledge, just to listen and witness. And that's why Imam Ahmad, they said that 5,000 people will come to sit in front of Imam Ahmad. 5,000 people came to listen to him teach. Only 500, they said, were writing the hadith. The other 4,500 people, they came in just to benefit and learn from his edit. I know I'm gonna learn something if I go there. That's the attitude. Let me go around and learn something. Let me try to learn something to be better. Not this, and not the attitude, I'm not a student, I'm not an imam, so I'm gonna fall back and let off the gas. No, let me go, and hopefully I can pick up on something, and I can be a better Muslim at somewhere, so I gotta be able to get something. Therefore, they said 5,000 people came, Only 500 are writing. That means the other people are there just looking. What can they do? What can you learn? You can learn just by observing. Tell you. It says here, and this is another one. It says, قال خلف بن هشام رحمه الله. He said about himself, he says, أشكل علي باب النحو. He said, I didn't understand one of the chapters when it came to Arabic grammar. I had an issue understanding. I didn't really understand it that well. But this is my question. If you were in college, right? Or if your children are in school and they have a problem understanding, what do you do? Get a tutor. Jake, get a tutor. Are tutors free?
No.
You might find free, what I'm saying. You want to probably find a tutor, you're gonna get a tutor. Even if, what if you can't find a free tutor? If I can't find a free tutor, what are we gonna do? We're gonna pay for a tutor. We're gonna pay for a tutor to learn that. We say the Quran class is $25 a month. They shouldn't charge. I can charge people for Quran. That's the attitude. The mentality is flipped. He said, I had a problem with the Arabic grammar. He says, فَأَنْفَقْتُ 80,000 dirham حَتَّى حَذَقْتُ. He said, but I said, I had a problem with the Arabic grammar, so in our idea, he did the same thing. He got a tutor. He said, I spent 80,000 dirham. That was the currency they were using. 80,000 spending on a teacher to teach me that chapter until I perfected it. Out of my own pocket. Why do we have this idea that knowledge is supposed to be free? We don't want to sacrifice anything. And then we're going to say on top of that, can I do it on Zoom? We don't want to leave the house either. Or worse than that, is it recorded? Can I just go back and listen to the recording? We laughing, but the Lord forgive us and make it better than this. There's no ways to sacrifice it. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be willing to get off the couch. You got a nice car, there's gas in it, the heat and the air works. I don't have a car. Uber, you Uber everywhere else. If you was going to the mall to go eat shopping, you Uber to the mall to go eat shopping, and get right in that Uber with all the bags and all that. But when it comes to this, knowledge we refuse. And that's something we need to change. Even if it comes down that we have to pay for it. It's worth it. And this is why the people who we say we love, who we say we follow, this is why they reached the level that they reached. They were willing to sacrifice. Later, it says here, قال سعيد بن المسيب رحمه الله. He says, إن كنت لأغيب الأيام والليالي في طلب الحديث واحد. He said, I used to disappear. I used to disappear for days at a time. And if you're going for a day, you're also going for a night. Days and nights. I would disappear for days and nights at a time, trying to get one hadith. Just one hadith. Just trying to get that one hadith. I would disappear for days. And if you're disappearing for days, that means you're sacrificing what? Sleep. What else? Time with your family. What else? Comfort. Work. It's a sacrifice. And if you look at it now, these are the people now. These are people we depend on now. 1,000 years later, we depend on these people to understand our Islam. Later. That's the point. We want to, when you hear this, it's not something that just sounds like a crazy story. No, we need to look and say, man, they willing to do that much sacrificing. And I'll be mad, because I say, like, people be mad when the joint buffer and all that. We online in the joint, and like now, it went off, they mad. They probably close on that one. I'm sorry. Nice. If it buffers and they can't see, people online going, come out the house. I always say the people here heard me clear. That's my thing. The people that were there, they heard me. There's no buffering in the mask. If it buffers, the voice not loud enough, why is it so dark? All of the come in the go out, get up. and go. Sacrifice that comfort and go. That's what they did. He's out days and nights at a time just to hear one statement of the hadith of the Prophet, just to get one. And another narration said that they heard, there was another narration that said, we heard some narrations from the Prophet that when we were in Iraq. They said, but that wasn't enough. They said, we wanted to go to Medina to hear it from their mouths ourselves. They went to Medina to hear it. That wasn't enough just to hear it from them. We got to go to Medina and do it. We're going all the way there to hear it from their mouths ourselves. Right? Everybody knows traveling takes what? Money. You got to spend your money. You got to spend money to travel. Saying we go on vacation, we won't have no problem spending no money on vacation. Bro. And I'm not saying that wrong, but I'm saying we don't think this is important enough to spend money on. We don't think this is that serious. We think this is just something passing. Our whole deen, our whole Islam, our whole deen is based on knowledge. From beginning to the end. Starting with the Shahada. Everything is based on knowledge. We don't think this is that serious. We think these are just crazy stories to hear. We're gonna die. Everybody in this room is gonna die. And it's possible in 100 years, none of us are mentioned. None of us are mentioned. Possibly none of us are mentioned. Or less than that. And it's possible 500 years from now, somebody in this room is mentioned by Muslims all over the world for the work that they do in Islam. Why that can't be us? Why do we think that's only for them, other people? Why that can't be us? That can be us. That's us. That's us. These people spend their money. Tell you. It says, قال محمد بن يونس رحمه الله كتبت بالبصرة عن 1186 رجلا. He said when he was in Iraq, and what did that tell you about Iraq? That everybody was in Iraq. That's where the knowledge was. At that time, Iraq was a place where people went for knowledge. And historically, knowledge will transfer from place to place. Not only locked into one place. Because what people do is they think, if I can't go to Mecca, Medina, I'm not going to study at all. Which is a mistake. Right? There's other places in the world to study. He said, when I was in Iraq, he said, I wrote down, and we write and talk, this is in their terms, they say, Yatu, Kateptu, meaning I'm in class, I'm writing with the Sheikh, I'm writing hadith. I'm there, and I wrote from 1,186 different men. Over 1,000 people he learned from. He took benefit from over 1,000 people. Which takes what, y'all? Time. You have to sacrifice some time to learn this thing. If we think, especially the adults, if we think in 10 to 15 years, what do we think is going to happen in 10 to 15 years? I'm going to be more specific so it don't sound crazy. The people that are teaching here this weekend, how long do we think we're going to be living? How long do you think we're going to be living? And who's next? That's the real question. If they're next, what are we setting them up for? How are we setting them up? The Prophet said, A'mal ummati, the ummah, the people generally live between 60 to 70. Some people go above 80, 60 to 70, and that's it. Most of the people teaching here is over 40. So if we're looking at it like that, we got less than 20 years. And less than that, because I know the brothers are probably 45 and up. So we got less, we want to look, the lowest portion is 15 years. We got 15 years left. If Allah don't call us before that, just according to the hadith of the Prophet. What are we doing with our children? Not our boys, our children, to set them up to carry on deen when we die. To be, not just be Muslims, to be teaching deen. Who's going to be teaching deen? What, in the next 15 years, right? Let's say 20 years. Who's going to be giving the lectures? For real, who will be giving the lectures? Nobody. Somebody gonna get out. Inshallah, somebody gonna get out. If it's your grandson, cool. That means, great. That means the younger generation that we looking at, like these boys here, the young girls, the younger generation, eventually they're gonna be here. Whether, this is the problem, this is the real problem. Whether they're qualified or not. That's the scary part. Whether they're qualified to be here or they're not qualified to be here, somebody's gonna be here. Our job is to put them in the best situation to make sure we get our children qualified. And I'm saying that based on history. Historically, if you don't know, the imams, and this is not a bad, I'm not saying nothing bad about no imam, number one. I'm telling you what they told me. Okay? The imams of the 70s, and then close to the 80s, late 60s, that generation, when they left the nation, they went to work in the community, that generation. Those imams, some of them, not all of them, some of them, does anybody know how they became the imam? Nobody?
They were disappointed.
No. Hold on, time out. This is a whole other problem. Nobody knows details about the generation that already passes.
They were appointed by W.D. Muhammad or people in the administration.
The fact that we don't know that, we're gonna do the same thing. Because we don't know how to avoid the problem. So we can ready to do the same thing that the people before us probably had an excuse. We don't have no excuse though. Some of them, not all of them, some of them became imams by just like this. There's 5 of us in the room. How many stories you know? 1, how many you know? 2, none, 1, 505. Okay. That's the amen. Listen, y'all, we laugh, but listen what I'm saying. If we keep going the way we're going, our children will be doing the same thing. It ain't gonna be funny, that's it. Because they're gonna have a problem with us not setting it up. Right? Now they might have an excuse. They left the nation, talking about it wasn't like that, it was a new thing. Now, you think we got the same excuse that they had? Do we think we had the same excuse that them brothers and sisters that left the nation of Islam didn't know what they knew? Do we think we're gonna have the same excuse that they had? With all the information at our hands like this? Somebody's gonna be here. If we don't, adults, if we don't take this thing seriously, if we're not willing to sacrifice, not just for our children, for us too, so that we know how to worship Allah properly. And we don't have to be listening to people, screenshotting tweets, stuff on Twitter and X, and you living life off of a screenshot. If we don't want to do that, we have to change and dedicate ourselves and sacrifice. We have to make some type of sacrifice. That don't mean you got to quit. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm not saying remove your kids from all the programs. I'm not saying don't go on vacation. I'm not saying none of that. I'm saying we can't take and say, you know what? I'm going to a class 1 time a week. I'm gonna make sure I at least make it to a class 1 time a week. That's 1 time a week. Can't do that once every 2 weeks. We can't sacrifice that little bit because we do know, and I'm gonna stop with this. I'm stopping, Shay. we do know. That was smooth though. So like, we do know, right? The time we on is not our time. You know, Allah's given us time, right? Allah's given us time. Allah's given us time. It's not our time. So we don't think I'm gonna sacrifice a class, generally a class at the mansion is like an hour, tops. A long class is an hour and a half. We're not willing to sacrifice like 1 hour per week to go learn about deen so we can be better Muslims, so that our children see us that is serious. No, we gotta go to class this day. So they see the intensity behind learning. Allah make us better. Allah increases and give us a serious that we review and we look at ourselves for as a community of people, individuals, we gotta look at ourselves. Why is this not serious to us? It was serious to all the people we love and we follow, we say we follow. It was serious to them. Why is this not serious to us? Why is it like it would be nice to learn? Why is it like that? Where we get that from? When all the people historically in Islam that everybody respects, these were people of knowledge. And bare minimum, they were worshipers. Or bad, people who were worshipers. And they love the people of knowledge. Don't stop there. So I want to invade or intrude on any other person's time. And Allah increase us all in knowledge and beneficial knowledge and protect us from being people who are here, but we don't practice. And Allah protects from people who hear the message and don't practice it. So Allah was saying about Nabi Muhammad, by the head of something. So.
Alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, I really think we should, Sheikh Abu Saajid gave this message, we should weigh on our hearts and soul, and begin to reflect on this deeply, inshallah. So we're gonna call the adhan for the Salatul Isha, and then we'll continue to proceed. Imam Shadeed Muhammad will be giving his lecture, inshallah.